All right, I need to say this because once again, the internet, well, specifically the Sims 4 community, is having a whole meltdown. I had to write my thoughts out because I wanted to make sure I get my point across without misrepresenting my opinions. So, a lot of people have come out expressing their fear, their frustration, their hesitations about moving forward with The Sims 4 because of the most recent buyout. So, Electronics Arts EA Games, as we all know it, has just agreed to a buyout deal worth $52.5 billion. dollars. And from the reactions online, you would think it was the end of our Western civilization as we know it. A lot of simmers are panicking. Lil Simsy came out with a statement, a few others, but she's the one I'm primarily thinking about because she has a very large following and so she's influencing a lot of people. And I've noticed in her comment section that a lot of people are freaking out. This is not a cultural doomsday as people are thinking that it is. There are schools being targeted as a result of psychotic evil people. Churches are also being targeted by psychotic evil people. People are out here getting assassinated for their opinions and their thoughts when they live in a country that allows them to speak freely on certain matters. There are also people in other countries who are oppressed. They are fighting for their land, for their country. This is what's trending. This is what people are concerned about. A video game company being taken private. So let's talk about what this buyout actually means. So EA is going private in a deal valued at $52.5 billion. And investors want to know what this means for innovation, what it means for the player experience, and whether it makes the gaming industry more consolidated. So there's an angle of we don't really know what's going to happen, so we're going to be cautious. And to be fair, those are reasonable concerns. I think it's okay to be cautious. But if you guys don't know, EA has been under fire for years. And they've been under fire for years over the same issues: aggressive monetization, copy and paste sports titles, and the whole controversy over loot boxes. This buyout didn't invent those problems. They've always been there. So I want to point out that this is probably the largest leveraged buyout in history. So this is where the rubber meets the road. It's funded by a mix of Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, Jared Kushner, his company Affinity Partners, and Silver Lake. And if you don't know who Jared Kushner is, he is the husband of the current sitting president's daughter. So combine an exclusive culture country, Saudi Arabia, and people's, I guess, assumptions about who Jared Kushner is and because he's married to the current sitting president's daughter. So mix these two together and this is where all the doomsday is coming from. So going private could give EA more freedom to experiment without stock market issues, without Wall Street breathing down their necks. But it also does come with risks: cost cutting, layoff, studio closures, etc. I don't know if you know, but EA is in debt. So this is probably a good move for them, even though a lot of us don't understand economics. So again, we have Saudi Arabia, which is a very exclusive country with very exclusive cultural standards. And then we have the Kushner connection. This is very record breaking. And there's a lot of uproar about it, so I kind of understand. But here's where I'm going to give you my opinion on this whole thing. So while we have simmers who are more like fear mongering people and expressing this disdain for the people that are funding this, here's my perspective. So, in a free market, companies buy, sell, merge, and restructure every single day. This isn't the apocalypse. It's called capitalism. And I know a lot of you, especially the simming community, are not fans of capitalism. And to be fair, every economic structure has its pros and its cons. Capitalism, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's just business. And for gamers to act like EA Games' future has been in question, I mean, where have you guys been for the last 2 decades? EA has survived a lot of scandals, a lot of government investigations, mass layoff, studio closures, talent drain, and the biggest one of them all, fan boycotts. That's right. Now, I'm specifically talking about the Sims community because I'm part of that community. So the Sims 4 community is primarily made up of members from the LGBTQ plus IA, wait, how do you say it? LGBTQIA plus community and predominantly women. Fan boycotts. Now, The Sims 4 has been out over 10 years. The game costs almost $2,000. And pack after pack, the Sims 4 community has always put out this energy that they're going to boycott until EA fixes all these bugs and issues with the game. They also think it's a big cash grab. So for the last 10 years, you guys have had an issue with EA games anyway. And now you're surprised that they've been bought out in the private sector by another country's wealth fund and a couple of other partners that you may not necessarily align with politically. Everyone's just sort of making an assumption because of who the country is, who the person is, and are making conclusions. And I think that's not healthy. And that's not good for anyone because we don't really know what the future is going to entail with this big buyout. So it's kind of funny that the Sims 4 community is in an uproar about this when EA Games has been having issues for decades and people have been trying to boycott for decades. And when Enzoi came out and now Paralyze is coming up, even before the buyout was announced, everyone was talking about, oh, I can't wait for this game to come out. We're all going to just drop the Sims. Like, this is what the energy was. And now that this buyout is happening, everyone's afraid. Foreign investment is part of this. The Saudis probably want a piece of the gaming industry, just like they've invested in technology, in sports, in movies. Notice the hypocrisy. Hollywood takes Chinese money, crickets. When Saudi Arabia invests in gaming, suddenly it's a moral crisis. Like, that's not consistency. That's politics. And that's the world we live in. Now, let's bust another myth that I've been hearing. So, diversity is going to go away. I've seen people panicking about The Sims, saying the new owners will strip out the LGBTQ plus options or change the way it's programmed. Technically, yes, ownership does give them power, but I believe the CEO, if I'm not mistaken, I'll have to look it up and I'll put a disclaimer here on the screen. But I believe the CEO is the same. But regardless, technically, yes, ownership does give them power, but in reality, it would be like unaliving your business if you're doing that. Like, EA Games know that The Sims 4, like I said, their consumer profile is primarily members of the LGBTQ plus community and females. The Sims makes its money by letting players live however they want. Traditional families, LGBTQ plus households, total chaos. All you Simmers out there who play unethical manual labor in your basements, your Sims basements, so that they can make money. They hire neighbors and put them in the basement. Yeah, I know all you players who do that. So anyway, so like I said, The Sims makes its money off of letting players live however they want, play however they want. That freedom and inclusivity is the very brand identity of The Sims. If you cut that out, you don't just hurt players, you kill the golden goose. And at the end of the day, money is what makes the world go round. So if they plan to buy out EA Games and The Sims 4 being one of the games under Electronic Arts, just to remove these very influential things that make the game successful, I don't know, it just doesn't seem right for that to even happen. Just my opinion. Private equity firms like Saudi's PIF, Kushner's Affinity, and Silver Lake aren't buying EA to fight culture wars. They're buying it for cash flow. And inclusivity sells. We know that. It's profitable, which means it's not going anywhere. And you guys, I promise you, if it does, I will eat my words. I'll eat my word. Now, here's another thing that I wanted to talk about. Some folks are saying, I don't want to fund bad people. I don't want to fund evil companies. I don't want to fund those who would ostracize me because I'm part of a certain community. But if you dig into who makes your phone, makes your sneakers, makes your clothes, makes your computer equipment, even your coffee, where you get your coffee from, you'll find investors or regimes that you disagree with, and that if you knew, you would probably get rid of your phone or get rid of your clothes or get rid of said object that is funded by said evil person or evil company. So when people claim this deal means the death of inclusivity, specifically I'm talking about The Sims 4, not FIFA, not Battlefield. I'm just specifically targeting The Sims 4 because I'm part of that community. Some of y'all have been saying The Sims has been dead already. Games are here to give us an escape. They are not to mirror every messy piece of reality. And if diversity and creativity keeps the money coming, and they do, trust me, they will still be in the game. I'm not saying to ignore politics or ignore your morals or your ethics, but let's be real, you guys. EA Games being bought by a private equity investors does not change your daily life. It doesn't change your freedom. It doesn't threaten your safety. It doesn't dictate your values. Like, I get it. You don't want your money tied to investors you don't trust or investors that you don't believe has your interest. Here's the reality. If you dig deep enough, just about every product you use is tied to a company or investors with questionable practices. And that's the world we live in. Humans have a fallen nature in themselves. Everyone, not a single person walking the face of the earth right now are perfect and good. And because humans are not perfect and good, we are going to find ourselves in situations, probably everyday life, where bad people, evil people are going to be in control of some things. And I think for the majority, everything that we just about own, there is someone or something or some people or groups of people behind it that have very questionable practices and beliefs. But I think in this regard, you can't escape it. You can't deny it. And so if you're going to stop playing a game, then there's a lot of things in your life you probably need to cut out if you really dig deeper. If you want to make a value-based choice on how you're going to move forward with The Sims 4, don't boycott EA while happily scrolling on an iPhone. The global economy is messy, which is why we need to keep perspective. EA's buyout isn't some unique moral crisis. It's not. It's business like every other industry. Honestly, if this really saddens you and sounds and feels like the biggest crisis, like I've hearing these simmers saying, this is my job. I play The Sims for a living. Now what am I supposed to do? Like if this is the biggest crisis or one of the biggest crises in your world today, congratulations, you're living a pretty good life. Meanwhile, there's a lot of bigger problems in the world and video games is just not one of them. So that's my 2 cents on the whole EA game buyout from Saudi Arabia company, Jared Kushner and others. It's just my opinion. I'm going to keep playing my games because I do enjoy them. I think games are innovative and The Sims 4 is one of those games that it's so goofy. It's a life simulation, but it's not really supposed to emulate life. That's why I think games like Enzoy and Paralives are going to lose this sense of comedy and parody because The Sims 4 was always a parody about life. And I don't think it's meant to be taken so seriously. Sure, there are people who want representation in a lot of things, and I get that. Me personally, I never grew up with having to look for representation. I was always going to be the one to represent. And that's the model that I stand by in my life and in everything that I do. And so I know this is a more serious video, but I figure since the internet and YouTube is going wild on mostly people fear mongering, I wanted to present a more centered perspective and just something for you guys to think about. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have people who disagree with me, which is fine. This is part of the world that we live in. You are welcome to disagree with me. At the end of the day, I think perspective is important. EA Games has always been boycotted by the Sims 4 community. They've always complained about the aggressive monetization. This game is literally valued at almost $2,000. Like, let that sink in. And it's buggy, and there's a lot of things wrong with it. And now here's an opportunity that has presented itself where EA decided to leave the public sector, and now everyone's like, oh my God, what am I gonna do now? My life is over. I'm gonna lose my job. And what am I gonna do for content? Keep playing. Keep playing. Because if you're concerned about the ethics and morality of the investors, um, there's a lot of things in your house right now that you should probably get rid of. There's probably TV shows you should probably stop watching. There's celebrities you should probably stop idolizing. There's stores, markets that you should probably stop participating in. In other words, just become a hermit. Leave your comments below. I don't know what you got. I mean, I don't know who's going to see this video and resonate with it or disagree with it, but I think everyone, including Lil Simsy, should calm down. I do believe that this does not go into effect until 2027. But like I said, The Sims 4 is one of EA Games' golden goose, and I highly doubt they're going to shoot themselves in the foot, in the leg, and remove the very things you guys are afraid that they're going to take out, considering who Saudi Arabia, what their culture is like, which kind of makes me think, a lot of you simmers use the Free Palestine hashtag, which I'm sure a lot of you don't even know what that means. But I'm also wondering, do you even know what the Palestinians culturally believe? I think 98% of them are Muslim. So the LGBTQ plus community has no survival. I just thought I'd put that out there. Just saying. Now, I'm not trying to demonize Palestinians. The culture itself is predominantly Muslim. And if you know anything about the Muslim religion, then it's not so inclusive as some of you might think it is. So the very same people who are hashtagging Free Palestine are now upset that Saudi Arabia has now some control over a game that they love. It's very interesting, very weird. I'm not an expert on politics or culture wars, but I do see things here and there, and I do think that um, if there is some contradictions out there that exists and it means something to me, I'm gonna make a video about it and talk about it. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I hope this was of some insight. So yeah.